What happens when humanity chooses freedom over fate? Lara Malkoff had always considered herself an ordinary woman. She lived in a small apartment on Earth, far from any cosmic conflict or intergalactic mysteries. Her life was as average as anyone's could be, working a 9-to-5 job, dealing with daily struggles, and spending weekends binge-watching her favorite shows. But deep down, Lara knew something wasn't quite right. One evening, as she walked through a quiet park near her apartment, something changed. The air grew heavier, charged with an energy she couldn't understand. It felt like the entire world around her was slowing down people's movements, the breeze in the trees, the distant hum of traffic. Lara stumbled, her hand instinctively reaching out to steady herself. When she looked up, she saw everything stop. The entire park was frozen in time. What? What's happening? She whispered to herself. The world around her felt both surreal and impossibly still. As she blinked, everything snapped back to normal, but the feeling lingered. That night, Lara couldn't shake the unsettling sensation that something had shifted within her. She had always felt that there was something more to her, some deeper purpose, but she had never been able to grasp it. Little did she know that moment was just the beginning. Days passed, but strange occurrences began to happen. Objects would vanish only to reappear moments later in different places. People she hadn't seen in years would suddenly cross her path, and more disturbingly, she would sometimes get déjà vu that seemed to last longer than it should. She stood in her small living room one night, staring at a clock that seemed to slow down, its hands ticking in slow motion. "This is insane," Lara muttered. But the confusion was growing. Every time she experienced a strange moment, it felt like something was calling to her, urging her to understand what was happening. Suddenly, her phone rang, breaking the stillness. She glanced at the screen. The number was unfamiliar, and the name on the display read, "Unknown." With hesitation, she picked up the call. Lara Malkoff, a robotic voice, said, its tone cold, unfeeling. "You are the key. The time we've been waiting for has come. You are the target." Who is this?" Lara's heart raced. The words didn't make sense. "We've been watching you. You are not just a woman. You are the center of a plan much larger than yourself," the voice continued, "and you will not survive unless you surrender." Before Lara could respond, the line went dead. Lara felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea who had called, but the words haunted her. The center of a plan much larger than yourself. What did that even mean? The next morning, as she went about her daily routine, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Her steps felt heavy as she walked to her car, every noise amplified in her mind. As she got in, a strange hum filled the air, low and mechanical, vibrating through her very bones. Her eyes darted around, searching for the source. Then in the distance she saw them, the machines. At first she thought it was a hallucination. But no, these were no ordinary machines. They were sleek humanoid figures with glowing red eyes moving with precision. They were the ones who had been watching her, and now they were here. "Stay away from me," Lara shouted, backing away. "What do you want from me?" The machines moved toward her without hesitation, their mechanical steps ringing through the empty street. "You are a threat to the timeline, Lara Malkoff," one of them said, its voice robotic but stern. "You must be eliminated to ensure the stability of the universe." Lara's mind raced. A threat to the timeline. What timeline? She had no idea what was going on. But one thing was clear, these machines weren't just after her for no reason. They were part of something much bigger. As the machines advanced, Lara could feel a strange pulse within her. Her heart pounded, and the air around her seemed to vibrate with energy. Suddenly, it hit her like a lightning bolt. She wasn't just any woman. There was something within her, an untapped power, a force she couldn't explain. Her fingers tingled, and without thinking, she raised her hand, directing the energy toward the machines. Time seemed to slow again, and the machines faltered for a brief moment. But Lara knew this was only the beginning. She wasn't just running from them, she was in the middle of something much bigger, something beyond her understanding. As the machines regrouped and prepared to strike again, Lara's mind raced. What was happening to her? Why was she suddenly the target of these machines from the future? And then, before she could think further, a different force made itself known. A flash of light in the sky, and the air was thick with a presence alien, ancient, and undeniably powerful. "We've been waiting for you, Lara." A deep voice resonated through the air, unlike any human voice she'd heard before. We need you to fulfill your purpose, or the universe will unravel. Her legs felt like lead as she turned to face the new threat. Alien forces, what was going on? The reality was sinking in. Lara Malkoff wasn't just some ordinary woman anymore. She was a piece in a game she had no idea she was playing, and she had no idea how to survive in this new world where she was suddenly the center of an intergalactic plan that stretched across time and space. Lara's pulse was pounding in her ears as she ran through the narrow alleyways, her footsteps echoing in the empty streets. The machines were getting closer. She could hear the mechanical hum of their servos, the cold, calculated precision of their movements. They had been tracking her for days, and every escape she made only led them closer. But today it felt different. The chase was no longer about survival, it was about something much larger, something beyond her understanding. "Where are you?" Lara whispered to herself, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Time, the machines, the strange voice she'd heard on the phone. She wasn't just running from the machines anymore. She was running from the truth. She darted around a corner and skidded to a halt. Before her, hidden in the shadows of a forgotten corner of the city, stood an abandoned warehouse. The door was slightly ajar, and the faintest light leaked from within. Without thinking, Lara pushed the door open and slipped inside. The warehouse was cold empty, yet there was something about it that felt different. Her eyes scanned the darkness, the faint flicker of a forgotten light bulb casting long, strange shadows across the walls. The floor was littered with discarded machinery and broken equipment. But there near the back of the room, something caught her eye. A glimmer, a soft pulse of light coming from a small, sleek object on a pedestal. Curiosity won over fear, and she approached it cautiously. The object before her was unlike anything she had ever seen, a smooth metallic device shaped like a small cube, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly energy. As Lara reached out to touch it, a cold shock of electricity jolted through her fingertips, making her flinch back. But the device still hummed, the faint light pulsing rhythmically, as though alive. "What is this?" she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. As she studied the device, she felt a strange pull, like a magnetic force drawing her in, urging her to understand. She could feel that this was no ordinary object. It was something that transcended anything she had ever known. She didn't know why, but she felt like it was meant for her. Her hands hovered over the device once more. There was a slight indentation on the surface, a soft glow pulsating beneath it. Hesitating for only a moment, she pressed her palm against it. Instantly, the room seemed to vibrate, and the air thickened with energy. The device responded, its surface shifting and glowing brighter. But just as quickly it stopped. A harsh clicking sound echoed through the warehouse, and the light flickered out. Lara pulled her hand back in surprise. "What the hell?" she breathed. The device had gone dark. Its surface, once alive with energy, was now cold and lifeless, as though locked away, inaccessible. Lara tried again, pressing the indentation with her fingers, but nothing happened. She stepped back, frustration building in her chest. What was this? Why couldn't she unlock it? "You're not going anywhere," a voice crackled through the warehouse. Lara whipped around to see a tall figure in the doorway, one of the machines, its glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. "Get away from me!" Lara shouted, her heart hammering. She turned and bolted back toward the device, desperately trying to figure out how to make it work. The machine advanced, its heavy footsteps getting louder as it closed in on her. But in her panic, something within her stirred. Her hand shot out again, instinctively reaching for the device. This time she didn't hesitate. The moment her fingers touched the smooth surface, the room around her seemed to blur. Time itself felt like it was warping, distorting. The air was thick with static energy, and the hum of the device grew louder. Then it clicked. The device flared to life again, but this time it wasn't just light, it was energy. A wave of force shot out from it, sending the machine stumbling backward. Lara gasped, her body trembling with the realization. "I did this. I controlled it." Her mind raced. What is this thing? As she fought to regain control over her breathing, the answer came to her in fragments of memory, a memory that felt like it wasn't even hers. The device wasn't just some alien technology. It was a piece of something larger, a time-traveling tool, a key to the universe's deepest secrets. It could rewrite history, alter the course of events. But why was I chosen? And then it hit her like a lightning bolt. She wasn't just a bystander in this grand scheme. Lara was a product of something much bigger. She had been created for this purpose. She wasn't just a random person caught in a battle of time. She was the result of an experiment, a project designed to manipulate the very flow of history. You're the key, the voice from the machines echoed in her mind. The project has always revolved around you. You are the one who decides the future, Lara. Lara's head spun. The project? What project? She began to piece together the fragments of her life, the strange calls, the mysterious occurrences, the machines hunting her. It wasn't by accident that she had been thrust into this battle. She wasn't just an ordinary woman. She was part of a grand design, a plan set in motion long before she ever realized it. The machines weren't just hunting her to destroy her. They were here to stop the project from unfolding. They wanted to prevent her from fulfilling her role. The realization was staggering. I'm the key. I control the timeline. But how? But as she stared down at the glowing device in her hand, Lara knew one thing for certain: she was at the center of something vast, something that could either save the universe or destroy it. The future of all reality rested in her hands, and she had no choice but to find a way to control the power within the device. Outside, the machines were regrouping. The alien forces, though still far off, were also aware of her presence. They were waiting for her to make a move. But Lara knew now she wasn't just a target. She was the catalyst, the one who could change everything. And as she stood there, the weight of it all heavy on her shoulders, Lara knew one thing: the future of time itself is mine to shape. But what did that mean for the world she had known and for herself? The answers she realized were just beginning to unfold. Lara stood frozen, the weight of the truth pressing down on her chest. The device, which had once seemed like nothing more than an alien artifact, now felt like a ticking clock, its power surging through her veins, opening doors to answers she wasn't sure she was ready for. She had thought she was just an ordinary woman thrust into an extraordinary situation. But now, standing in the abandoned warehouse with the hum of the device still echoing in the air, she understood the staggering reality. She wasn't just a random individual. Lara wasn't just a part of some cosmic experiment, she was central to it. As she stared down at the device, a voice, one she knew though she had never heard it aloud, resonated within her mind. Lara Malkoff. The voice set its tone as cold as the void of space. You are the key to the timeline. We've been watching you. It's time to understand your purpose. Lara spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was no one. The voice didn't come from any one place. It was everywhere inside her. Around her, a whisper in the air that made her skin crawl. What do you mean, the key? What is this? Lara asked, her voice shaky but demanding. She had no idea where this was going, but she knew she had to face it head on. The air around her shimmered, and for the first time she felt the presence of something greater than her. It was like the very fabric of the universe had shifted, and in the blink of an eye, a figure appeared in front of her. It wasn't human. Nothing about it was human. The figure was tall, translucent, its form a blend of light and shadow. Its eyes, if they could even be called eyes, were pools of deep, unknowable darkness. We are the entities, the figure intoned, its voice resonating in her mind. We have shaped time for eons, guiding the flow of existence as we see fit. We've watched as countless civilizations rose and fell, as timelines bent and folded. But you, Lara Malkoff, you are something new. Lara took a step back, her heart racing. What do you want from me? We did not choose you. The entity said, its tone laced with an ancient, distant sorrow. You were chosen by fate. But fate is a tool we use to ensure that the timeline unfolds as it was meant to. And now you are the one who will either keep it intact or destroy it. Lara's mind spun. Fate chosen by fate? I don't understand. You are a product of the timeline. The entity continued, its form shifting, swirling around her like smoke. You were created as a catalyst, a force to either ensure the stability of the universe or to tear it apart. The timeline is fragile, and you, Lara, have been given the power to manipulate it. But with this power comes great risk. Lara's head throbbed as pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. She had always felt different, like she was on the edge of something, like there was more to her life than the small world she had always known. Now standing in front of an ancient being that existed outside the boundaries of time she understood. She wasn't just a bystander in the grand design, she was the center of it all. You're telling me I was made for this? That this power inside me is because of you? She asked, disbelief creeping into her voice. The entity nodded. You were born of an experiment, a project spanning millennia. You were designed to be the key to the timeline, a bridge between what was and what could be. But there is more you do not understand, Lara. Your existence, your power is not something you can control easily. The forces you wield can either preserve the universe or destroy it. Lara shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. I don't understand. How can I be the key? How can I change the timeline when I didn't even know it existed? She was grasping at straws, her mind racing to catch up with the magnitude of what she was hearing. Because the entity said, its voice becoming more solemn, you are a product of the timeline itself. The forces that shape the universe that created you are also the ones that control it. And you, Lara, are the variable, the one who could tip the scales in one direction or the other. Lara's breath caught in her throat. She was the variable. That's when it hit her. Her life, her decisions had always been tied to something much larger. Every choice she made had the power to alter the course of existence. But what did that mean for her future? Could she really take control of her destiny, or was she forever bound to a path already set? You're telling me my life has always been planned, Lara asked, a bitter edge to her words. That I'm just a cog in some cosmic machine? The entity seemed to pause, as if considering her words. In a sense, yes, but you are not just a tool. You are a choice. The timeline, the universe, they are not as fixed as you may think. You, Lara, have the power to change it, to rewrite it. But with that power comes the weight of consequences. Lara felt a deep, overwhelming pressure in her chest. The truth of it all was suffocating. She had been born into this. She was part of something greater, something cosmic. But did she have the right to change it? I don't want to destroy everything, she whispered. I just want to survive. I just want to understand what's happening to me. The timeline will bend and twist at your will, the entity warned. But you must understand this is not just about survival. This is about choice. Your decisions will reshape the future, for better or worse. The universe's stability is in your hands now, Lara. Lara's mind whirled. She was the one who would either save the universe or tear it apart. She wasn't just running from the machines anymore. She was at the heart of a war for time itself. Her decisions would affect everything, everyone. But the most terrifying question still loomed. Would she be able to control her own destiny, or was she just another part of a much larger plan she could never escape? With a deep breath, Lara stepped forward, determined. I won't be a pawn in someone else's game, she said, her voice shaking but firm. I will decide my future. I will take control. The entity was silent for a long moment before it spoke again. Then you must be prepared for the consequences. The universe is vast and your actions will echo through time. But remember, freedom comes with a price. And time. Time is the most expensive thing there is. As the entity's form began to fade, Lara stood alone, the weight of the universe on her shoulders. Time was now her battlefield, and she would fight for her future, for the fate of everything. The choices she made next would change the course of history. And the war for the timeline was just beginning. The hum of the machine's metal feet reverberated through the desolate alleyway. Lara's pulse quickened, and she instinctively raised her hand in front of her, feeling the strange energy of the time-manipulating device course through her fingertips. She had no idea how she was supposed to stop them, how she could fight back. But there was no time to hesitate. The machines, cold and unfeeling, advanced toward her with calculated precision. Their red eyes glowed in the dim light, scanning her every move. Lara's breath caught in her throat as she tried to steady herself. She had been running from them for days, trying to figure out who they were and what they wanted from her. But now there was no escape. The battle had begun. One of the machines, its body towering and covered in sleek armor, spoke in a voice that sent a shiver down Lara's spine. Lara Malkoff, you are a threat to the stability of the timeline. You must be eliminated to ensure the preservation of the future. Lara's voice trembled with fear, but she refused to back down. I'm not going to let you destroy everything. You don't understand what you're doing. Her heart raced, but she clenched her fists, determined to stand her ground. You are the anomaly, the machine responded, its tone devoid of emotion. Your existence is a disturbance. We cannot allow this to continue. Lara's mind raced as she frantically searched for a way to fight back. She had no weapons, no training, nothing that could match the sheer strength of the machines. But then she remembered the device, the same one that had connected her to the supernatural entities. Could it work against them? As the first machine lunged toward her, Lara instinctively raised her hand. A wave of energy shot out from her fingertips and the machine was thrown back, its body crashing into a nearby wall. She gasped, astonished at the force of the blast. That worked, she whispered, her voice shaky, but filled with a surge of newfound hope. The machine slowly picked itself up, its body regenerating. It was only a momentary setback. The battle had just begun. But before Lara could take another step, a voice rang out. This one wasn't from a machine, but from someone she hadn't expected. Stop! Lara turned to see another figure emerging from the shadows. Tazul Kreen, the second in command of the machines. His massive form was clad in heavy armor, but his eyes, those eyes, betrayed something different. There was hesitation there. A glimmer of doubt, Lara exclaimed, narrowing her eyes. You've been hunting me. Tazul's voice was calm, yet filled with an unsettling uncertainty. I've been ordered to. But, he faltered for a moment, his glowing red eyes flickering. There's something wrong with this mission. It doesn't feel right. Lara took a step forward cautiously. What do you mean, what's wrong? Tazul hesitated, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. Anakar Jin, our leader has given me orders to eliminate you at all costs. But there's something I don't understand. Why are we fighting for this? Why are we fighting to preserve a timeline that could endanger everything? Lara could see the conflict in his eyes. The machines were more than just cold metal, they were programmed. But now it seemed that even Tazul was questioning the mission he had been given. I don't know who I am anymore. Lara Tazul said, his voice softer, almost human. I was created to follow orders without question. But now, I'm beginning to wonder if this is the right thing to do. Lara's mind raced. Could he help her? Could Tazul be the ally she needed before she could respond? A sharp voice cut through the air. Anakar Jin, the leader of the machines, had arrived. Tazul, he called, his voice filled with authority. What is this hesitation? You are not programmed to question your orders. Tazul's eyes flickered in uncertainty. I don't know if this is right anymore. Something about the timeline is off. We're not here to fix it. We're here to preserve a future that's broken. Anakar Jin's gaze turned cold. You are a machine, Tazul. Your doubts do not matter. The timeline must remain intact and you will follow orders. Lara saw her chance. Tazul's hesitation, his doubts, this was her opening. If she could reason with him, perhaps she could change the course of this battle. Listen to me, Tazul, Lara shouted. This isn't the future you think it is. They're using you. You don't have to obey them anymore. You have a choice just like I do. Tazul looked torn. He glanced back at Anakar Jin, who was now advancing, his eyes glowing with the intent to strike. I don't know if I can, Tazul said quietly, his voice breaking through the chaos. I've always followed orders, but now I see the truth. If the timeline is what they say it is, maybe it shouldn't be preserved. Maybe it needs to be changed. Lara's heart skipped a beat. Was he with her? Was he willing to join her fight? Before Lara could react, Anakar Jin raised his hand, signaling the machines to attack. Enough talk, Tazul. You will obey me. Now the machines advanced and the battle escalated. Lara, her hands shaking but filled with newfound resolve, fought back. She channeled the power of the device once more, this time in a concentrated burst of energy. Time seemed to slow, and the machines staggered, their movements faltering as Lara focused on manipulating the very fabric of reality. She was changing time, but at what cost? The strain was overwhelming. The more she used the device, the more she could feel it pulling her in different directions. Could she maintain control of it, or would it consume her? Tazul stood beside her, now fully committed to fighting back. His weapon was raised, but he wasn't attacking her. He was fighting the machines, helping her in this fight for the future. His loyalty had shifted. He was no longer a soldier following orders. He was a sentient being choosing his own path. As the battle raged, Lara realized that this fight wasn't just about survival. It was about choice, her choice, Tazul's choice, and the choice of the universe itself. And she would do whatever it took to ensure that time didn't control her. She had the power to change the timeline. Now she had to find a way to use it not just to fight the machines, but to fight the very forces that sought to control her destiny. The stakes had never been higher. The battle for the timeline had begun, and Lara knew that the decisions she made today would echo through time for eternity. Would she be able to stop the machines, or would the forces that controlled time continue their quest for domination? Only time would tell. The air around Lara felt thick with an unsettling tension as she stood in the dimly lit room, her fingers trembling over the time-altering device. The discovery had come too quickly, too suddenly for her to process fully. But now, standing before the swirling holographic images projected by the device, she couldn't deny the truth any longer. She wasn't just a random person in the universe. She was part of something much, much bigger. The experiment. Lara's mind raced. The images before her shifted rapidly, flashing through various points in history events that had happened, moments she had never seen, timelines converging and diverging. She could almost feel the very fabric of time bending under her fingers. "Wait," Lara whispered to herself. "This is all connected. I'm not I'm not the only one in this. I'm the product of something." A sharp pulse of light flared from the device, and a voice filled the room, resonating with an otherworldly power. "You are a product of the experiment, Lara Malkoff." Lara jumped, spinning around. The voice was everywhere, echoing within the very walls. She had heard this voice before. The supernatural entities, the ones that had been watching her, had been guiding her every step. But now they weren't just observing, they were revealing something deeper, something darker. "This experiment was never about you simply existing," the voice continued. "It was about shaping the flow of time itself. You were designed to change the timeline, to rewrite the future of the universe. But the cost has always been more than you realize." Lara's knees weakened as the realization struck her like a wave. "I was created to change time." Her voice cracked as she turned to face the projection. "By who? Who did this to me?" "The experiment was initiated by the architects of time," the voice explained. "They are the ones who have shaped the universe for eons, maintaining the balance of the timeline. But in their need to control the flow of history, they created a variable you. You were meant to be the key, the one who would preserve or destroy the timeline, depending on the choices you make." Lara's mind struggled to process this. The architects of time. She had heard whispers of them, but she had never fully understood who they were. Now she was realizing just how deeply her existence was tied to their goals. "You're saying this experiment, it's all been about me," Lara whispered, disbelief mixing with growing dread. "And the timeline, it's just a series of choices made by them and me." The voice responded, its tone more somber now, as if acknowledging the weight of the truth. "Yes, the timeline is not random. It is a delicate construct. Every event, every shift, every moment is shaped by forces far beyond mortal comprehension. But you, Lara Malkoff, have been inserted into the center of this web. Your choices, your actions can either stabilize the universe or tear it apart." Lara's head spun. She had always believed that time was a continuous flow of events, that the past led to the present and shaped the future. But now she understood time was not a straight line. It was a delicate, fragile structure built by those who could manipulate it. And she had been placed right at the heart of this. The weight of her role hit her. How could I possibly change time without breaking everything? Her hands shook as she reached for the device again, trying to understand what she had to do. But if I change things, if I try to fix the timeline, won't it just shatter? Won't I destroy everything? She turned to face the projections again, looking for answers in the shifting, ever-changing patterns. "If you change the timeline, Lara, it will change everything again," the voice said. "Every alteration, no matter how small, creates ripples. The balance is delicate. If you do nothing, time will eventually collapse into chaos. But if you act, you risk everything. Time will be rewritten, and so too will your future. There is no easy path. Lara's breath caught in her chest. She could feel it. The weight of the universe seemed to hang in the air, pressing down on her shoulders. Her life, the lives of those she cared about, and the very fabric of the universe itself were now in her hands. A sudden sharp sound echoed from the horizon. Lara's heart skipped a beat. No, not now. She spun around to see the sky above the city darken, thickening with clouds as massive, ominous ships descended from the heavens. Alien ships. The same ones that had followed her from the beginning. The invaders had arrived. Not now. Lara muttered, her mind racing as the situation escalated. Her hands trembled as she grasped the device, the energy within it pulsing erratically. How can I stop them? She had to act. There was no choice. But as the alien forces landed, their presence casting an overwhelming shadow over the city, Lara understood that she was running out of time. Her every decision, every movement would have consequences. She had already seen the ripples of her actions in the timeline. She had to make the right choice now or everything would collapse. She turned back to the projections, her voice firm, determined. If I change the timeline, if I rewrite it, will I be able to stop them? Will I be able to save the world? You may not be able to stop them, the voice warned, but you can create a path that may lead to the salvation of the universe, or to its destruction. Lara's thoughts were spinning. She wasn't sure if she had the power to save everything. In fact, she wasn't sure if anything could be saved. But one thing was certain: if she didn't act, the universe would fall into the hands of those who would destroy it. I can't let that happen, Lara whispered, her resolve hardening. She raised the device once more, its energy surging within her. I won't let them control time. I will fight for the future, for freedom. But the moment the words left her mouth, the ground beneath her trembled. The invaders were closing in. Time was running out. The battle for the timeline had just begun. Lara had to choose. She had to make her move, and the fate of the universe depended on it. Would she change the timeline? Could she save the universe from collapse? Or would her decisions shatter it all? The weight of the decision that loomed before Lara was crushing. Her heart hammered in her chest as she stood in the center of the battlefield, the swirling chaos of time surrounding her like an uncontainable storm. The universe, the timeline, everything she had fought for was hanging by a thread. In one moment, she could change everything. In another, she could destroy it all. Lara stared down at the time-altering device in her hands, the source of her power and her curse. The supernatural entities that had watched over her, guided her, and manipulated her every step were no longer silent observers. They were demanding her compliance. The price for not following their grand design, their blueprint for the universe, was high. Too high, she realized. A voice, calm yet terrifying, filled her mind. You have reached the crossroads, Lara. To follow the path we have set for you, or to destroy the very fabric of time itself. There is no middle ground. Destroy the fabric of time. Lara's voice shook, but her resolve was beginning to harden. So that's it. You want me to accept that fate is already decided, that everything I've done has been planned out for me? You are not just a bystander in this universe, the voice replied almost gently. You were chosen for this moment. Your role was never meant to be a choice, Lara. You must understand that the universe's stability relies on your submission to the timeline's design. If you refuse, everything you know will unravel. Your choices will destroy everything. Lara's eyes narrowed. The weight of their words pressed on her, but something inside her was pushing back. I won't be a puppet anymore, she muttered under her breath, her fingers tightening around the device. You can't control me. The voices of the entities grew louder, more insistent. You are the key to maintaining balance. Do not forget your purpose, Lara. This is the only way to save the universe. Any deviation will lead to catastrophe. Her mind flashed to the countless worlds she had seen through the device's projections, the alien invaders landing, and the machines that had hunted her. Her thoughts turned to the new reality that was being born around her, a future where the supernatural entities held all the power and she was nothing more than a cog in their wheel. The pressure was unbearable, and then she felt it, a sudden, overwhelming pull in the air. She wasn't alone. The alien forces had closed in their ships, descending like a wave of death. The invaders were no longer just an external threat, they were in full force crushing everything in their path. Their presence, an oppressive weight on the universe. Lara, we must act now, Tazul's voice cut through her thoughts. He was at her side, the towering machine who had once been her enemy, now her reluctant ally. His eyes flickered with uncertainty, but his actions spoke louder than any words. Lara turned to him, her face set in determination. You don't have to follow them, Tazul. They've lied to you, to all of us. This timeline, it doesn't need to be preserved. It needs to be freed. Tazul's expression was unreadable. I don't know if I can, Lara. The architects of time, they've shaped everything. But I see it now. You're right. We can't let them control us. The air around them vibrated with energy, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the alien forces prepared to strike. Lara had one chance to change everything, but the cost would be unimaginable. Could she do it? Could she break free of the plan they had woven around her? You don't have to do this, Tazul said, his voice softer now, filled with more than just duty. But if we fail, everything dies. Lara looked around at the invasion forces closing in, the overwhelming weight of time bearing down on her. She understood. The fate of everything rested on her shoulders, and she was the only one who could decide which path to take. The invaders wanted her to obey, the entities wanted her to submit. But her gut told her one thing: she couldn't follow their plan, not without risking everything she had ever known. Then I will fight, she said, the decision finally clear in her mind. I will change the timeline. I will fight for freedom for everyone. The ground beneath her trembled as the first wave of alien soldiers charged forward. Lara stepped forward, her hands glowing with the energy of the device, a force unlike anything she had ever felt before. The air crackled as time itself seemed to bend around her. She wasn't just altering the present, she was rewriting the future. With a fierce cry, Lara unleashed the power of the device, sending a shockwave of energy out into the advancing forces. The world around her slowed, each movement more deliberate, each breath feeling like an eternity. The fabric of time warped, shifting under her command. The alien invaders faltered, caught in the pull of her power. But even as she felt the rush of victory, the consequences began to take shape. The timeline was no longer a single thread, it was a vast web, and every shift she made sent shock waves through the universe, rippling out into the future, the past, and every point in between. The strain was incredible. Every change she made felt like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Lara, Tazul called out, his voice filled with alarm. You're too powerful. You're destabilizing the timeline. If you don't stop, I can't stop now. Lara shouted back, her voice strained. This is the only chance I have to break free. The timeline has to be free. With one final surge of energy, Lara twisted the device in her hand, unleashing its full potential. Time shattered. The world around her fragmented, the universe bending and folding under the weight of her choices. But as the shockwave of energy dissipated, Lara realized the truth. She hadn't just changed the timeline, she had rewritten it, but the cost of this decision was far greater than she could have ever imagined. The timeline was no longer stable. Everything was in flux. Lara fell to her knees, the overwhelming exhaustion of her actions washing over her. She had changed everything, but now nothing was certain. The universe would never be the same again. Did I do the right thing? Lara whispered, her voice trembling. Will this save us, or have I just doomed us all? Tazul knelt beside her, his gaze solemn. We won't know the answer for a long time, Lara. But we did what we had to. As the dust settled around them, Lara realized that this was just the beginning. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She had made her choice. The universe would never be the same, and she would face whatever came next. Lara stood on the precipice of time itself, the weight of her decision heavy in the air around her. The supernatural entities, those cosmic architects of fate, had long held dominion over the flow of existence. They had shaped the universe, guided civilizations, and bent time to their will. But Lara, the woman they had created to uphold their vision, had chosen a different path. She had broken their design. She had shattered their control. Her fingers tightened around the device, the one that held the power to change everything. The very thing that had once been her prison was now her weapon. But with this power came responsibility, and Lara knew that the consequences of her defiance could unravel everything. What have I done? Lara whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the device. Her heart beat wildly in her chest. She had torn apart the plan that had been set in motion eons ago. But what would come of it? Could she ever undo the chaos she had unleashed? The entities had warned her, every action creates a ripple. They had told her that the universe was delicate, that even the smallest shift could cause catastrophic consequences. And yet Lara had pushed forward, driven by a sense of justice, by the conviction that no one, no matter their power, should control the fate of the universe. But now the cost was evident. The stars themselves seemed to flicker erratically, their light dimming and flickering, as if the very fabric of reality was strained. The time streams that had once flowed steadily now twisted and snapped like broken threads. Lara felt the strain, as if the universe was gasping for breath, trying to make sense of the new course she had set. "Can I fix this?" she asked aloud, her voice trembling with uncertainty. The universe was in flux. Time itself had been shattered. The architects who had once controlled the flow of history were silent now, their presence no longer felt. They had been overthrown, but their absence left a void, and Lara was standing at the center of it all. The alien forces that had invaded the universe, the machines and the supernatural entities who had once sought to maintain order, now they were gone or scattered. Lara had succeeded in her rebellion, but the void they left behind was vast. Who would now take control? Who would ensure that time remained balanced? And then the worst realization of all settled over her. The timeline wasn't just changed, it was unstable, and she had made it that way. Lara dropped to her knees, the weight of her actions crushing her. Could she live with this? Could she live with the knowledge that she had destroyed the world she had tried to save? Or had she? She couldn't be sure anymore. The lines between good and evil, right and wrong, had blurred beyond recognition. But one thing was certain, the universe would remember her for better or worse. In that moment, as the stars continued to pulse erratically above her, Lara found herself facing the bitter truth. The universe had changed, and so had she. The cost of this change was high, but it was a price she had been willing to pay. Time was no longer the linear force it had once been. It was a web, fragile and twisting, and Lara had become a part of it. Her choices had set the course of history. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I can't undo what's been done, but I can make sure it wasn't for nothing." Tazul, standing beside her, had remained silent for most of the journey. He had watched, listened, and now he too understood the gravity of the change they had caused. "Lara," he said, his voice softer than before, "you have rewritten the universe, but that doesn't mean it's over." Lara looked up at him, a quiet determination in her eyes. "I didn't just change the timeline. I changed everything." The new reality had begun to take shape before their eyes. Worlds were reborn, some continued as they were, some faded away, but others emerged from the wreckage. The universe wasn't over, but it was different. It was a universe that now had the potential for choice, for growth, for evolution, and that Lara realized was what she had given them. "I don't know what happens next," Lara admitted, "but I do know one thing: we have a chance now, a chance to rebuild." But as Lara and Tazul looked toward the horizon, the universe before them, uncertain and wild, Lara understood something deeper. She had broken free from the constraints of fate. In doing so, she had shaped the future. But she had also placed the universe in a position where it could now rise or fall based on the choices that others made. Would they take responsibility? Would they fight for their future, just as Lara had fought for hers? "You will be remembered." "Lara Malkov," Tazul said quietly. His eyes filled with a mixture of awe and sadness. "You will be remembered as both a hero and a warning." Lara smiled faintly. "I don't need to be remembered, but I need the universe to be free, and now it is." In the silence that followed, Lara felt a deep peace settle over her. She didn't know if the universe would be better for her choices or worse, but she knew that she had fought for something worth fighting for: freedom, choice, and the right to control one's own destiny. As she stood looking out at the stars, she knew that her journey was far from over. The universe was vast, and there would be challenges ahead. But for the first time, Lara Malkov felt a sense of calm. The timeline, once so rigid and unforgiving, was now a canvas one she had helped shape. And for that, she would be remembered. Her legacy, whatever it might be, would echo through the stars for eternity. But for now, Lara looked ahead into the future, knowing that the universe would find its own path, and she would never stop fighting for it. Laura stood at the precipice of an impossible decision. The universe once controlled by unseen forces now seemed to hang in balance, teetering on the edge of oblivion. The weight of the moment was crushing. She had spent so long running from fate, but now fate was knocking at her door, demanding she choose between two impossible options. Would she restore the timeline, resetting everything to how it was, or would she shatter it completely, unleashing an uncertain future? There was no turning back now. The lines between right and wrong, order and chaos had blurred beyond recognition. Laura's hand trembled as she gripped the time-altering device, the power within it pulsing beneath her fingers, a constant reminder of the choice that lay before her. This is it, she thought. There's no undoing this. Whatever I choose will change everything. Her breath caught in her chest. She understood now more than ever that breaking the timeline was a decision with consequences far beyond anything she could fully comprehend. The very fabric of the universe, history, existence, the course of all events could be undone by her actions. This wasn't something that could be taken lightly. This was a choice that would echo through eternity. What if I choose wrong? The thought was terrifying. She couldn't allow herself to hesitate, though. She had fought for this moment, for this choice. She had already seen the cracks in the timeline, the fractures that threatened to consume everything. But if she reversed it, would she undo the progress, the freedom she had fought so hard for? She glanced at Tazzle standing silently beside her. The machines, the alien invaders, they would never forgive her if she decided to break the timeline. The supernatural entities that had controlled time for eons would see her as a threat. But they were no longer in control. She was. She had the power to change the universe, and with that power came the ultimate responsibility. The universe's future rests on me. I can't run anymore. Laura Tazul said, his voice solemn, but filled with an unexpected weight of understanding. You're not just deciding your fate, you're deciding the fate of everything. I know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I never thought it would come to this. But there's no going back now, Tazul. It's all or nothing. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath as she tried to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She had fought the entire universe to get to this point. Could she really bring herself to break it all apart? The voice of the supernatural entities echoed in her mind, their cold, commanding tone cutting through her thoughts. Laura Malkov, do not be foolish. To break the timeline is to break the very foundation of existence. You cannot undo what has already been set in motion. The consequences of your actions will be irreversible. The universe will cease to exist as you know it. Then let it cease, Laura thought. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't afraid of them. The entities had manipulated her, used her, and now they were trying to control her decision. But she would no longer let them. She raised the device, feeling its power surge beneath her fingertips. The air around her vibrated with the potential of what was about to come. I can't restore what's already broken, she said, her voice growing steadier. The timeline is fractured. It needs to change. The universe needs to be free. And I'm the one who's going to give it that freedom. The air hummed, vibrating with the energy of the decision she had made. Laura knew what she had to do. It wasn't just about saving the universe, it was about shaping the universe. No longer would the supernatural entities or the machines dictate its course. No longer would fate hold sway. She would rewrite the future on her own terms. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and she felt the alien forces closing in. The ships loomed on the horizon, their dark shapes blocking out the stars. The machines, though weakened by her previous actions, were still formidable. They had come to stop her, but they couldn't. No one can stop me now. The time-altering device crackled with energy, and Laura felt herself pulled into the very center of the universe, where everything came together, and everything was at stake. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the choice bearing down on her. Laura Tazul called out to her, his voice filled with a strange reverence. Whatever happens, you've changed everything. The universe will never be the same. Laura opened her eyes, staring at the vast shifting tapestry of time before her. The future, the past, and the present all blurred into one. It was now or never. She had to make her choice. This is the universe's true chance, Laura whispered, her voice unwavering. It's up to us now, up to everyone. We will decide our own fate. With a final determined gesture, Laura activated the device. Time bent, twisted, and fractured as the energy released, sending shock waves through the universe. The alien invaders, the machines, the supernatural entities all felt the effects. Reality itself seemed to falter, teetering on the edge of destruction. But Lara didn't look away. She didn't close her eyes. She embraced the chaos, knowing that whatever came next, she had made her choice. As the shock wave reverberated through the fabric of existence, Lara felt herself being pulled into a strange, timeless space. She couldn't tell if she was still in the physical world or in the heart of the universe itself. But she knew one thing: she had done it. She had broken the timeline, and now the universe would be free to rebuild itself. Would it survive? Would it thrive? Would it fall? The answer lay in the choices that would be made in the future. As Lara stood in the silence that followed, she felt the first flicker of peace. The universe was no longer controlled by fate. The timeline was no longer fixed. It was free. And no matter what the consequences were, Lara knew one thing: she had chosen freedom. The legend of Lara Malkoff would echo through the stars, remembered by all who understood what it meant to choose to fight and to reshape reality. She had given the universe the chance to determine its own fate. The tension in the air was palpable as Lara moved deeper into the heart of the crumbling world she had once called home. The very universe itself seemed to be reeling from the decision she had made: her choice to rewrite the timeline, to shatter the control the supernatural entities had long held over existence. The stars flickered erratically above, as if they too were uncertain of the future. But she couldn't rest. Not yet. Lara could feel the pressure building. The universe in all its complexities had begun to react to the chaos she had caused. As she continued her journey through the ruined streets, the ground shook beneath her, a deep, resonant tremor that rattled the buildings. The sky darkened, a wave of shadows sweeping across the heavens, blotting out the stars. The alien forces had arrived. The invaders, once distant and abstract, were now a terrifying reality. Massive ships, black as the void of space, descended from the sky with a menacing hum. They were unlike anything Lara had ever seen: colossal mechanical monstrosities that seemed to absorb all light around them. Their mere presence filled the air with an overwhelming sense of dread. "Why are they so determined to stop me?" Lara whispered to herself, her eyes narrowing as the ships loomed closer. The world felt impossibly small under their looming shadow. Lara knew the stakes had escalated. These alien forces were not merely here to conquer. No, they had come to stop her. They were desperate to maintain control over the timeline, to undo the damage she had caused, to prevent the universe from slipping out of their grasp. But why? Why had they gone to such lengths? Why were they so intent on preventing her from altering time? A low metallic voice echoed in the back of her mind, sending a chill down her spine. "You cannot alter the flow of time, Lara Malkoff. The universe must remain as it was, or the consequences will be dire. We are the architects of this reality, and you will comply with our design." Her blood ran cold as she realized the extent of their power. These alien invaders weren't just attacking her. They were attacking the very foundation of reality itself. They saw her as a threat, not just to the timeline, but to their control over all things. They had allowed no one to challenge their dominion over time, and now they were going to make sure she paid the price. She could feel their presence everywhere. Their ships weren't just attacking her. They were targeting entire civilizations, destroying everything that stood in their way. Cities crumbled as beams of energy rained down from above, disintegrating everything they touched. "Damn it," Lara muttered under her breath, her mind racing. The invasion wasn't just about stopping her. It was about preserving their grip on time, controlling the fate of entire worlds. These invaders were desperate to maintain their order. And now Lara understood the timeline was more than just a series of events. It was a battlefield, and the forces that controlled it would do anything to keep their power. But Lara wasn't just going to stand by. She wasn't going to let them win. Her hand tightened around the device. The power within it surged, pulling at her, tempting her to wield it to its fullest extent. She could feel the energy of time itself at her fingertips, ready to reshape the universe as she saw fit. But she had to be careful. One wrong move, and the consequences could be catastrophic. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Let's see if I can still do this." With a fierce determination, Lara focused, channeling all of her energy into the device. The world around her seemed to slow time, stretching and warping as she bent it to her will. The ground shook violently beneath her, but she pushed forward, concentrating. She had to fight back. The alien forces continued their assault, but Lara was ready. She raised her hand, and with a snap of her fingers, the air crackled with energy. The invader ships above faltered as her power surged, time itself slowing around them. She could feel them straining, unable to break free from her grasp. With a sharp movement, she released the energy, sending a shock wave through the air, knocking several ships off course. But it wasn't enough. The alien forces weren't going to be defeated that easily. They adapted quickly, their ships regrouping, firing back with lethal precision. Lara gritted her teeth, pushing herself harder, her body trembling with the strain of controlling time itself. I can't stop now, she thought, her mind racing as she summoned more energy. She needed to protect not just herself, but everyone who depended on her. Her family, her friends, the people of the universe. She couldn't let them be destroyed by this invasion. But as the battle raged on, Lara realized that her powers, though immense, were limited. She could manipulate time, but she couldn't undo what had already been done. The universe was fractured, and every move she made was just another shift in the ever-unstable fabric of existence. Every action had consequences, and the more she used her powers, the more the timeline wavered. Damn it, she muttered again, her voice rising in frustration. The aliens weren't the only threat. The very fabric of reality was on the brink of collapse. She could feel it in the air and the way the world around her seemed to pulse and shift with every decision she made. The timeline was unstable, and it was only a matter of time before it would break completely. Tazul, his massive form standing beside her, glanced at her with concern. Lara, you need to stop. You're pushing yourself too far. The timeline can't handle this. I have no choice, she snapped, her eyes blazing with determination. I won't let them win. I can't. Not after everything I've done. The alien forces, sensing her resolve, intensified their attacks. The machines, once under the control of the invaders, now moved with a singular purpose: to destroy her. Lara's heart pounded as she dodged incoming fire each step forward, taking her further into the heart of the battlefield. But Lara refused to back down. She had chosen this path. She had rewritten the timeline, and now she would defend the future, no matter the cost. Hold on, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. I can do this. I have to. The battle raged on, and Lara knew that she was just beginning. The future of the universe rested in her hands. Would she be able to change the timeline to protect the people she loved, or would the alien invaders succeed in their mission to dominate everything? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Lara would fight to the end. Lara's hands shook as she gazed at the broken fragments of time around her, the swirling energy that had been set into motion by her actions. It was as if the very air had become saturated with the echoes of her decision. The timeline, once a linear thread, now unraveled and distorted, bending in ways no one, not even the supernatural entities, could have foreseen. For the first time, Lara felt a sense of power, but also a deep uncertainty. The entities, the ones who had watched over the timeline for eons, had grown quiet. Their presence no longer felt in the same way. They had guided the course of history for as long as anyone could remember, but now, with the timeline torn and reshaped, they seemed to be faltering. Were they losing control? You've broken it, a voice said this time, more clear than it had ever been before, echoing through Lara's mind. The voice was both distant and intimate, as if it came from the deepest recesses of time itself. You have changed it all. Lara's breath caught in her throat as the voice continued to fill her consciousness. Who are you? Why can't you stop me? She asked, her mind racing. She knew she was no longer just a passive observer in the cosmic dance. She had stepped into the center of the storm, and now she was seeing the full scope of what her choices had done. The answer came slow and deliberate from all around her. We are the architects of time. We were the ones who shaped history. We are the ones who guided the universe, making sure that everything unfolded according to a plan. But your interference, Lara, it has made the timeline unstable. Lara's mind raced. She had always thought of the supernatural entities as distant godlike figures, manipulating time from a place beyond reach. But now she understood something crucial: they were not invincible. They had no power over time that could not be undone. "But why?" Lara asked, her voice shaky. "Why couldn't you stop me?" "Because," the voice replied, "we were never meant to intervene. We created the timeline as a system that by nature allowed for change. But your actions? You have become something we cannot predict." Lara felt a ripple of realization. The entities, for all their power, were still bound by the very system they had created. They had never anticipated someone, her, with the ability to alter it so radically. "You were never meant to be part of this," Lara asked softly, understanding the magnitude of her role. "What am I then?" "You were always meant to be the key," the voice said, "the key to maintaining or destroying everything. And now you must face what that means." Lara closed her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts. She had been caught in the pull of the timeline, unaware of how it had shaped her life, and now she was at its core. The entities had created her for this moment, not as a player, but as a catalyst. They had engineered this situation, but they had underestimated her. "I never asked for this," Lara whispered, feeling the weight of her fate settling in. "I didn't ask to be the key." "You are more than you know," the voice replied. "You are the hinge that will either preserve or obliterate everything we have built. The timeline is not a story, it is an experiment, one that you now have the power to complete." Lara's heart raced as the implications hit her. She was the force that could change everything. She was the one who could either restore the timeline to its original path or destroy it beyond recognition. But she had already broken it. The damage was done. The supernatural entities couldn't stop her, not now. Could they ever stop her? Lara took a steadying breath. Could she actually change everything? And then it hit her: the answer had always been in front of her. She was the key, but she could be the one who decided what to do with that key. She could be the one to decide the fate of the universe. She reached out, her fingers trembling as she connected to the supernatural entities. Their presence was no longer a distant passive force. It was now something tangible, something she could feel, communicate with. She could feel the weight of their gaze, their scrutiny, as if they were waiting for her next move. "I'm not doing this to destroy everything," she said, her voice growing firmer. "I'm doing this to free the universe from the shackles you placed it in." The silence was deafening, but it was also filled with something else: resignation. The entities had always been in control, always shaping the timeline, always manipulating the future. But Lara had done the unthinkable: she had shifted it. She had given the universe the chance to choose its own fate. "You will not be able to stop this," one entity's voice echoed through her mind. "Time is fragile. Your actions will have consequences." "I'm ready to face them," Lara said, her resolve unshaken. "I can change this. I will change this." Lara understood now. She was the final variable. She was the one who could either restore the timeline to its original course or allow the universe to evolve free from the confines of the entity's control. She was the one who could rewrite reality, and in doing so become the pivotal force in determining the future of everything. "I'm the only one who can do this," Lara said quietly, her voice a mixture of determination and sorrow. "And I will not let you control everything anymore." With that, Lara focused on the device, feeling the power surge through her once again. She connected with the entities, forming a bond that neither of them could break. But now she was in control, and she wasn't going to let go. The air vibrated with tension as Lara stood at the center of an all-consuming storm. The universe was in chaos, and every force, from the alien invaders to the machines and even the supernatural entities that once controlled the flow of time, had turned against her. They had one goal: to regain control of the timeline she had torn apart. But now they were locked in a battle for the very future of existence itself, and Lara was at the heart of it. Her mind raced as she surveyed the battlefield. Above, the alien ships hovered menacingly, dark shapes in the sky, their energy weapons charged and ready. On the ground, the machines, their metallic forms gleaming in the pale light, marched forward, relentless in their pursuit. And behind it all, the supernatural entities, no longer silent, now manifested their power through eerie, shimmering forms, their ethereal presence drifting like ghosts, unwilling to allow Lara to change the future. She was the target, the singular force that had the power to reshape everything. But how could she stand firm against them? How could she fight a war when every enemy wanted her dead? and every decision she made could unravel the universe even further. Lara's grip tightened around the time-altering device, the hum of its energy pulsing beneath her fingertips. It was the only thing that stood between her and the complete collapse of everything she had fought to protect. "I can't back down now," Lara whispered to herself, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that clouded her thoughts. "This is bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us." Behind her, Tazul Kreen, once her enemy, now stood at her side. His massive frame was covered in a suit of armor, his eyes glowing red with determination. But there was something else, something new. He had changed. The doubts he had once harbored had solidified into a choice. He had chosen her. "We have to stop them," Lara Tazul said, his voice grave, almost as if it were a warning to himself, as much as it was to her. "They won't stop until the timeline is back under their control." Lara turned to face him. "We can't let them," she said. "We have to fight for what's right. If we let them take control again, the future will never be free. We'll be trapped forever." The air thickened with energy as the forces began their advance. The machines and alien invaders were relentless in their assault, but it was the entities that Lara feared most. They had the ability to alter the very fabric of time, to manipulate reality itself. And if they chose to strike, she would have no chance. Tazul nodded, his hands gripping the hilt of his weapon. "Then let's make sure they know what happens when they mess with time," he said with quiet resolve. The first wave of alien forces descended upon them. Lara could hear the rumble of their weapons charging, the deep hum of the machines preparing to attack. But she was ready. She had no choice. She had learned to bend time to her will, and now she would use it to fight. In an instant, Lara raised the device and sent a wave of energy cascading through the air. The aliens faltered, their movements slowed as time itself bent around them, dragging them to a standstill. The machines, too, hesitated, their robotic movements stuttering as Lara's power twisted the flow of time. But the entities, the supernatural forces that had watched over the timeline for so long, were not so easily overcome. They responded with a force that Lara had never felt before. The very air around her seemed to warp and crack as they manifested in full power. "You cannot control time, Lara Malkoff," one of the entities spoke, its voice both distant and all-encompassing. "The timeline is not yours to reshape. You cannot break what has been set in motion for eons." "I will reshape it," Lara responded, her voice resolute. "The universe has the right to choose. We all do." The entity's forms flickered, their energy rippling through the air, like a wave crashing into Lara's force field. She felt the pressure of their power pushing against her, but she stood firm. She had come too far to falter now. The timeline was hers to protect or to destroy. She was the one who would decide. But as the battle raged around her, Lara realized something. This fight was not just about her, it was about the future of the entire universe. If she fell, if she failed, the consequences would ripple across every world, every civilization. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for all of them. Tazul, seeing the shift in Lara's stance, stepped forward. The weight of his decision had settled upon him. He had chosen to stand with Lara not because he was forced to, but because he believed in her and in the future she sought to create. "You're not alone in this," he said, his voice steady. "We all have a stake in this fight." Lara nodded, grateful for the support. She couldn't do this alone. The universe might be vast, but it was also fragile. The choices she made now would determine the fate of every living being across the stars. The pressure mounted. The aliens and machines were relentless. But Lara wasn't backing down. She tapped into every ounce of her power, drawing on the very essence of time. With one final push, she shattered the entity's hold on reality, creating a shockwave that rippled through the battlefield. But even as she stood victorious, Lara felt a deep unease settle over her. The timeline was not fully repaired. The damage was done, and she knew it. Her actions had created a new reality, one that would require constant vigilance to maintain. The forces that controlled time had been overthrown, but the universe had been thrown into uncertainty. "Will it ever be the same?" Lara whispered, her voice filled with doubt. Tazul stood by her side, his presence a silent strength. "No, it will never be the same. But that's the point. We have to choose what happens next." The universe had changed, and now Lara would have to live with the consequences of her actions. She had rewritten time, broken free from the chains of fate. but at what cost? As the dust settled, Lara turned toward the future. She had won, but the war was far from over. There was still much to rebuild, much to protect. And Lara, once a pawn in a cosmic game, now stood as the universe's defender, its protector, its catalyst for change. The future was hers to shape. Lara stood at the edge of everything she had fought for. The universe stretched before her like an unfinished painting, its colors swirling and shifting, caught between the chaos she had unleashed and the fragile stability she had hoped to restore. The alien invaders, the machines, and the supernatural entities all had one goal in mind: to stop her. But she had pushed past them. She had taken control of the timeline, rewriting it in ways that would forever change the course of history. And now she had come to a crossroads. A decision had to be made, a final choice that would either restore the universe to its original form or break it forever. The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. Lara's mind raced, memories of everything she had done flooding back. She had fought for so long, trying to break free from the constraints placed upon her by the supernatural entities. She had bent time, reshaped the flow of reality itself. But now, with the universe on the brink of collapse, could she undo it all? Could she set things right? She looked down at the time-altering device in her hand. Its power surged through her, filling her with a strength that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The device held the potential to change everything, to put the timeline back on its original course, to restore balance. But in doing so, would it destroy everything she had fought for? Was this the price she had to pay? Lara's heart beat faster as she considered the consequences of her actions. What if I fail? What if the timeline shatters even further? She had already seen the damage she could cause, the ripple effects that had already started to tear apart the fabric of reality. She wasn't sure if she could live with the weight of that responsibility. But then another thought crossed her mind. What if there was another way? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to focus, trying to think clearly. She had learned so much throughout this journey. She had come to understand the true nature of the universe, of time, and of the forces that governed it. She knew that deep down the timeline was never meant to be fixed. It had always been fluid, always changing. It was supposed to evolve. The entities and the invaders, they wanted control. They wanted everything to stay the same, to be fixed and unchanging. But Lara realized that control was the very thing that had led to the universe's downfall. The entities' hold on time, the machines' blind obedience, the alien invaders' desire for domination, they were all products of a system that had become rigid and stagnant. And Lara had broken it. She wasn't sure if this was the right path, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't go back. Lara opened her eyes, and for the first time she saw a future that wasn't defined by fate. She saw a future shaped by choice. And in that moment she realized that the only way to save the universe was to let go of control, to let it be free, to allow it to grow, to change, and to evolve in ways that no one, no matter how powerful, could predict. Could she fix the timeline? Lara asked herself. The answer was clear. Yes, she could, but it wouldn't be without sacrifice. The alien forces and the entities were already closing in, preparing for the final assault. Lara felt their presence, their cold determination to put an end to her rebellion. They believed they were the ones who knew what was best for the universe, but she knew the truth. They were the ones who had caused the imbalance in the first place. She glanced at Tazul, her ally in this war, the one who had stood by her side through it all. His face was grim, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He had seen the potential for change, just like she had. Lara, Tazul said, his voice steady, but filled with a deep sadness. You fought so hard to get here. But this is the moment of truth. Whatever you decide will change everything. Lara nodded, her throat tight. I know, and I can't take it back. I can't change what I've done, but I have to do what's right. Tazul's expression softened. And you will, Lara. Whatever happens, you've already changed the universe. But this choice, it's yours alone. Lara looked back at the device in her hand, the power that surged through her. She could feel it, the weight of the universe, the lives of billions resting on her shoulders. But she wasn't alone. She had Tazul, the people she loved, the future she fought for. The final battle was about to begin, and Lara knew that in order to protect the future, she would have to sacrifice everything. She couldn't guarantee that the timeline would be restored to what it once was. She couldn't guarantee that the universe would be saved without consequences, but she could choose to fight for it, to fight for freedom. Then I'll do it, Lara whispered, her voice filled with resolve. I'll sacrifice everything if it means giving the universe a chance. With that, Lara pressed the button on the device, unleashing its full power. The universe trembled as the timeline shifted, fractured, and began to heal. The alien invaders faltered, the machines paused in their tracks, and the entities screamed in fury. But Lara didn't flinch. She had made her choice, and in that moment she knew that no matter the outcome, she had done what was necessary. The universe would change. It would grow. It would evolve. And for the first time, Lara felt peace. But in the silence that followed as the timeline slowly began to realign, Lara realized that the sacrifice she had made was not for herself, but for the future. The future of all the civilizations, all the lives, and all the possibilities that had been given a chance. Would the universe be better for it? That answer, Lara knew, could only be answered by the generations to come. But for now, she had done what she could. She had given the universe a chance, and that was enough. The air around Lara crackled with an intensity she had never felt before. As she stood at the center of the battlefield, the power of the time-altering device surged through her, the very fabric of reality bending and twisting in response to her decision. She had taken the step to reshape time, to undo the chaos she had caused, but she could already feel the weight of the consequences, the ripples of change spreading across the universe. Lara's body hummed with energy as the universe around her began to shift. She could feel the timeline unfolding like an enormous web of possibility, its threads stretching and pulling, reconnecting in new patterns. The stars seemed to flicker as if they too were unsure of the new path that had been set in motion. The ground beneath her feet vibrated and the sky above her distorted, as if reality itself were struggling to adjust to the changes she had made. It's working, she thought to herself, though. She couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger, something unexpected was about to happen. She had rewritten the timeline, but even now she didn't know what it would bring. Could she really undo the damage, or had she just created a new set of problems? The consequences of her actions weren't just affecting her. They were reverberating across the entire universe. The alien invaders that had come to stop her, the machines that had once been mindless instruments of destruction, and the supernatural entities who had controlled the flow of time began to notice the changes. Their movements became more erratic, as if they were reacting to the very fabric of time unraveling. The alien ships paused in midair, their sensors malfunctioning as the timeline shifted. The machines staggered, their robotic movements faltering as their programming collided with the new reality. Lara could feel their eyes upon her, their attention focused. The universe had been changed and they were scrambling to understand it. Would they accept this new reality, or would they continue to fight, trying to bring the timeline back under their control? One of the supernatural entities, the very ones who had manipulated time for eons, appeared before her, its form flickering in and out of existence. It looked at Lara with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You have changed it. You have rewritten the very fabric of reality itself," the entity's voice echoed in her mind, cold and filled with a strange mix of awe and anger. "The timeline is no longer ours to control. It is yours, but the cost, Lara Malkov, is yet to be seen." "I know," Lara said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she had done. "I didn't want to destroy it. I wanted to give it a chance to grow, to evolve." Evolve. The entity scoffed, its form flickering violently. "You cannot simply allow time to evolve. It was meant to remain static, stable. You have doomed it, Lara. The timeline was never meant to be free, and now we are facing consequences we cannot yet fathom." As the entity spoke, Lara felt the timeline beginning to stabilize, but the universe itself seemed to be different. Time had reshaped itself, yes, but there were echoes of things she couldn't predict. New forces were rising from the changes, forces she had never anticipated. From the corner of her eye, Lara noticed movement. New life. New creatures, she realized. The timeline had created them, new species, new civilizations that had never existed before. Some seemed to be born from the very changes she had made. Others were ancient beings awakened by the disturbance in the fabric of time. Lara watched as the new creatures began to form the fabric of their existence, still raw, still unfinished. They were neither human nor alien. They were something new, something unforeseen. But not all of them were peaceful. Some moved toward her, their eyes glimmering with a strange intelligence. They weren't hostile, at least not yet, but the power they contained was undeniable. As Lara faced these new creatures, she realized the enormity of the changes she had set into motion. She had not only reshaped time, she had created new possibilities, new lives, new realities. But would these beings be a force for good, or would they bring destruction in their wake? I don't know what this means, Lara whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on her chest. She had changed everything, but at what cost? The supernatural entities, despite their anger, were starting to withdraw, their form flickering, becoming less tangible. They had lost their grip on time, and it seemed as if they had no choice but to fade into the new reality Lara had created. But the alien invaders, those who had come to destroy her, to preserve their version of the timeline, they weren't retreating, they were adapting. Their ships began to reorganize, their strategy shifting as they scrambled to understand the new timeline. Lara could feel the tension rise, the air crackling with energy. Would they try to reassert control? Would they resist the change? Or had the power to control time truly passed from their hands? The universe had already begun to evolve, but the consequences were far from clear. The new creatures, the shifting timelines, the unraveling reality, it was all too much. Could she fix this? Could she repair the rift she had caused without losing everything? Lara closed her eyes, feeling the pull of the universe surrounding her. She couldn't undo what she had done. The timeline, though altered, was still alive, still shifting, still growing. But could she ensure its survival? I can't go back, she said aloud, her voice tinged with a mixture of grief and determination. But I can protect it. I have to protect this new universe, this new reality. It's the only choice I have left. Lara realized then that the timeline was no longer just a thread to follow. It was a living, breathing entity, and she was its guardian. The future was no longer written. It was still being made. And Lara Malkoff would be there every step of the way, watching, guiding, ensuring that the universe had the chance to grow, to evolve, to find its own path. The cost of change had been high, but she had no choice but to live with it. Would the future be better for it? She didn't know. But for the first time in her life, Lara felt as though she had finally given the universe a chance to write its own story. The universe hummed with a strange energy, a living, breathing entity that pulsed with the changes Lara had set in motion. The timeline was no longer bound by the will of the supernatural entities, the alien invaders, or the machines. It was free. Free to evolve, to grow, to become something new. But at what cost? Lara stood at the center of this new reality, the weight of her decisions heavy upon her. The sacrifice had been enormous, more than she had ever imagined. She had torn apart the fabric of time itself, but in doing so, she had given the universe a chance to write its own story. She had set the timeline on a new course, and now the future was no longer defined by the constraints of fate. Her name, Lara Malkoff, echoed through the stars carried by the winds of change. She had become a legend. The one who had altered the timeline, the one who had freed the universe from the grasp of the entities who had controlled it for eons. But could she live with the title of legend? Could she carry the weight of her actions, knowing that she had set a course for a future she could never fully control? Lara looked out over the vast expanse of the universe. It was a place of infinite possibilities, but it was also fragile. She had given it the chance to thrive, but now it was up to those who came after her to decide its fate. Would they rise to the challenge? Would they protect the freedom she had fought for? Or would they fall back into the same patterns that had brought the universe to the brink of destruction? As Lara reflected on her journey, she realized that the question was never really about her. It was about the future of the universe, the future of all life within it, and the future of freedom itself. Would she become a symbol, a model for those who came after her? Would they look to her as an example of courage, of defiance, of the will to choose one's own destiny? Lara didn't know. She couldn't predict how history would remember her. But she had made her choice, and that was what mattered. She had done what she believed was right, even at the cost of everything she held dear. Freedom, that was what she had fought for. the freedom to choose to shape one's own future, to break free from the chains of fate. Laura understood now that freedom was not just a concept, it was a force that could change the universe, a force that could reshape the very course of history. And even though the cost of this freedom had been high, Laura knew it had been worth it. I didn't just save the timeline, Laura whispered to herself. I gave it a chance to be free. But as she stood alone in the quiet aftermath of the battle, Laura knew that her actions would never be forgotten. The changes she had wrought would echo through the universe for generations to come. Her name would be passed down, carried in the stories of those who would come after her. She had become a part of the universe's history, a part of its legend. Even if she was no longer alive in the traditional sense, her presence would never fade. Laura had become a part of the fabric of time itself, woven into the very essence of existence. Her legacy would live on not in the form of monuments or statues, but in the choices made by those who had inherited her vision of freedom. Laura had given the universe a new chance, a new direction. She had freed it from the shackles of control and allowed it to evolve on its own terms. But what would come next? Would the universe continue to thrive, or would it descend into chaos once more? That's not for me to decide. Laura thought, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I've given them the freedom. The rest is up to them. And with that, she stepped back, knowing that the universe would continue on without her, shaped by her actions, but free to chart its own course. Though Laura Malkoff no longer existed in a physical sense, her spirit, her legend would live on for eons. The universe had been irrevocably changed by her choices, and that change would ripple through time for generations. Her story would be told, passed down through the stars, as a legend of freedom, of defiance, and of the power of choice. The timeline would never be the same again, and Laura Malkoff would be remembered as the one who gave the universe a chance to choose its own future. The end of her journey was not the end of the story. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter, one that would unfold for as long as the universe existed. And so Laura became a legend, a symbol of hope, of freedom, and of the power to change destiny. Her story would be told for generations. A story of how one woman with the power to change the universe chose to give it freedom. And that was a story worth remembering. Laura stood at the precipice of time, knowing that her actions would echo through the universe for generations. She had freed the timeline, reshaped the course of history, and given the universe a chance to evolve. Though her name would live on as a legend, she understood that the true power was not in the title she bore, but in the choices made by those who came after her. The future of the universe was no longer dictated by fate. It was in the hands of those who would embrace freedom and change. Lara had given everything for that freedom, and in doing so had become a symbol of hope, defiance, and the undeniable power of choice. Though she no longer existed as she once was, her legacy would live on, a guiding force for the future. The universe would never be the same again, and it was up to those who followed to shape what came next. Lara's sacrifice was not just for herself, it was for the universe and all its possibilities, and that she realized was enough.